My business partner embezzled $2, $3 M, and framed me for it. I spent 8 months pretending I didn't know while secretly building a case that destroyed his life in one courtroom hearing. I met Marcus Chen during freshman orientation at MIT. We were both computer science majors, both scholarship kids who'd spent high school teaching ourselves to code instead of going to parties. We bonded over a shared hatred of Java and a shared love of terrible energy drinks that tasted like battery acid. By sophomore year, we were finishing each other's code. By junior year, we'd started talking about building something together after graduation, something real, something that mattered. CloudSafe was born in our dorm room during finals week senior year. Marcus was stressed about his networking exam, and I made some joke about how campus Wi-Fi was so insecure that anyone with basic knowledge could intercept data. He looked up from his laptop and said, "What if we built something that made public networks actually safe?" 3 months later, we had a working prototype, a cybersecurity platform that created encrypted tunnels for businesses using public or shared networks. It wasn't revolutionary, but it worked, and it solved a real problem. We launched with $12,000 between us. My savings from 3 summers of internships, his money from tutoring other students in algorithms. We rented a tiny office above a dry cleaner in Somerville. The place smelled like chemicals and had water stains on the ceiling, but it was ours. Marcus handled the business side. Finances, investor relations, sales pitches. He was good at it too. He could walk into a room of venture capitalists and make them believe we were the next big thing. I focused on the product, writing code, managing our small development team, fixing bugs at 3 a.m. when clients called in a panic. It worked. God, it worked better than either of us had imagined. 4 years after launch, CloudSafe had a $47 million valuation. We'd closed our Series B funding round that spring, $15 million from top-tier VCs in Silicon Valley, the kind of investors who'd backed companies that became household names. Marcus bought a Tesla the week after the funding cleared, midnight blue with all the upgrades. He sent me a photo of himself in the driver's seat, grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. "Company's doing well," he texted. "We earned this." I was happy for him, I really was. I'd bought myself a nicer apartment, finally upgraded from the place with the broken heater and the neighbor who practiced drums at midnight. But a Tesla felt excessive. Then again, Marcus had always been the one who cared about appearances. Nice clothes, expensive watches, the kind of haircut that costs $120. I figured he'd earned it. We both had. 2 months later, he closed on a condo downtown, penthouse unit, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. He threw a housewarming party and invited everyone from the company. I remember standing on his balcony, looking at the city lights, thinking about how far we'd come from that dorm room. "Not bad for 2 kids who learned to code from YouTube tutorials," I said. Marcus clinked his beer against mine. "Just wait, this is only the beginning." I should have asked myself then where all the money was coming from. Our salaries were good, but not Tesla-and penthouse good. Not yet. But I wanted to believe we'd made it. That success looked like expensive cars and harbor views. The call came on a Tuesday morning in October. I was in the office early reviewing code from our latest security update when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Is this Jason Webb?" The voice was professional, female, no warmth in it. "Yes, who's calling?" "This is Sarah Hoffman from the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. We need to speak with you about some irregularities in your business accounts." My first thought was that it was a scam, one of those fake IRS calls that threatens you with arrest if you don't pay immediately. "Can you verify your credentials?" I asked. "Because I get a lot of—" "Mr. Webb, this isn't a scam. We've identified $2.3 million in unexplained transactions from CloudSafe's accounts over the past 18 months. Wire transfers to offshore entities with no clear business purpose. Your signature appears on the authorization documents." The room tilted. "That's impossible. I don't authorize wire transfers. Marcus handles all financial operations. There must be a mistake." "That's what we need to discuss. We'll need you to come in for an interview." "Can you make yourself available tomorrow at 9 a.m.? I sat there after she gave me the address, staring at my monitor without seeing it. $2.3 million, offshore transfers, my signature. None of it made sense. I called Marcus immediately. He answered on the 4th ring, sounding distracted. "Hey, what's up? I'm in a meeting with—" The IRS just called me. They're saying there are unexplained transactions. $2.3 million. They want me to come in tomorrow. Silence, just a beat too long. What? That's insane. There must be an error in their system. They said my signature is on authorization documents. Your signature? Jason, you don't sign off on wire transfers. I do. Something's wrong. Let me make some calls. I'll get our accountant on this right away. Should I get a lawyer? Probably a good idea, but don't panic. These things happen. Government agencies flag legitimate transactions all the time. We'll sort it out. He sounded calm, reassuring, like this was just another problem we'd solved together the way we'd solved 1,000 problems before. But that pause, that split second before he answered, I should have paid attention to it. I hired a lawyer that evening. James Peterson, white-collar criminal defense, came highly recommended by a friend from grad school. His office was in downtown Boston, all dark wood and leather chairs that probably cost more than my first car. Walk me through everything, he said, legal pad ready. I told him about the IRS call, the amount, the offshore transfers. James took notes in precise handwriting. Here's what you need to understand, he said when I finished. If the IRS has flagged transactions with your signature, they believe you're responsible. If this goes to criminal prosecution, you could be looking at 20 years for wire fraud and embezzlement. The prosecution will argue you systematically stole from your own company and tried to hide it using offshore accounts. But I didn't do it. I believe you, but belief doesn't matter in court. Evidence matters. And right now, we need to understand what evidence exists and who actually had the means and motive to commit these crimes. The IRS interview the next morning was worse than I expected. Two agents, Sarah Hoffman and a man named Carl Rodriguez, sat across from me in a windowless room that smelled like stale coffee and anxiety. They showed me the authorization documents. Wire transfers ranging from $50,000 to $200,000, 23 separate transactions over 18 months. All to accounts in the Cayman Islands, all bearing my digital signature. Mr. Webb, these transfers were authorized from your business email account, Sarah said. The IP logs show they originated from company servers when you were logged in. I never authorized these, I said. Someone used my credentials. Who had access to your login information? Just me, and our IT department could reset it if needed, but I never gave my password to anyone. Carl leaned forward. Mr. Webb, are you experiencing financial difficulties, debts, medical expenses? Sometimes people make poor choices when they're under pressure. If you cooperate now, it goes better for you later. I didn't do this. They didn't believe me. I could see it in their faces. Marcus called an emergency board meeting for that afternoon. CloudSafe's board was small. The two of us, our lead investor Jessica Park from Redwood Ventures, and David Hammond, a former CFO of a Fortune 500 tech company who'd agreed to advise us. We gathered in the conference room at 3 p.m. Marcus had printed packets for everyone. Financial statements, transaction logs, account summaries. His organization was impeccable as always. I'm sure you've all heard by now, Marcus began, his voice grave. The IRS has flagged some transactions they consider suspicious. Jason had his interview this morning. Jessica flipped through her packet, her expression unreadable. Walk me through what we're looking at. Marcus pulled up a spreadsheet on the monitor. These are the flagged transactions, 23 separate wire transfers over 18 months. They range from $50,000 to $200,000 each, all to accounts in the Cayman Islands. David Hammond leaned forward. What was the business purpose of these transfers? That's what we're trying to figure out, Marcus said. He clicked to another slide, my signature, my digital signature on authorization forms, transfer after transfer after transfer. My mouth went dry. I didn't sign those. Marcus's expression was pained, sympathetic. Like he was watching a friend spiral. Jason, I know this is difficult, but we need to be completely honest with each other. Did you authorize these transfers? No, I've never seen these documents before. Then how did your digital signature get on them? Jessica's voice was sharp. I don't know, someone must have forged it. This is identity theft or fraud or... David cut me off. Mr. Webb, I need to ask you directly. Have you been experiencing financial difficulties, gambling debts, family emergencies? Sometimes good people make bad choices when they're under pressure. The implication hit me like cold water. They thought I did this. You think I stole from our own company? We're trying to understand what happened, Marcus said quietly. His voice was so carefully controlled, so measured. I've been worried about some irregularities in our accounts for a few weeks now. I wanted to believe there was an innocent explanation, but he shook his head. Jason, I didn't want to believe my best friend would do something like this. I stared at him. At Marcus, who I'd known for 8 years, who'd been in my wedding, who I'd trusted with everything. You think I did this? I think we need a forensic audit, Jessica said. Immediately, and Jason, you need to understand the seriousness of this situation. If you're responsible, the sooner you come clean, the better it will be for everyone. The meeting ended with me agreeing to take a temporary leave of absence while an independent forensic accountant investigated the transactions. Marcus would step in as interim CEO. The board wanted to move quickly to contain the damage before investors or clients caught wind of potential fraud. I left that conference room feeling like I was drowning. The forensic accountant was a woman named Patricia Acaffer. Former FBI, now private sector, with a reputation for being thorough and unforgiving. Her preliminary report came back 3 weeks later. She'd found forged emails from my account approving questionable expenses. She'd found search history on my company laptop, how to transfer money internationally and offshore account tax implications, and anonymous wire transfers. She didn't find any offshore accounts in my name, didn't find any unexplained deposits in my personal accounts. But she did find what she called a pattern consistent with systematic embezzlement and attempted concealment. Marcus called me after the report went to the board. Jason, I don't know what to say. Patricia's findings they're really damning. Someone planted that evidence. Who? Why? Jason, you need to face reality here. The evidence all points to you. If you made a mistake, if you got in over your head somehow, tell me now, let me help you. I didn't do this. Then who did? I almost said it. Almost said, maybe you did. But something stopped me, some instinct that told me if I accused him now, everything would get worse. I don't know yet, I said instead, but I'm going to find out. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment staring at my phone. The conversation played back in my head. Marcus's carefully concerned tone, his helpful suggestions, his gentle pressure for me to confess. It felt rehearsed, scripted. That's when I started really thinking about access. Who could get into my email? Who could use my laptop? Who had the technical knowledge to forge digital signatures and plant search histories? The answer kept coming back to one person. Marcus. We'd set up each other as emergency account recovery contacts years ago. Standard practice for business partners. If one of us got locked out, the other could restore access. It was supposed to be a safety measure, but it also meant Marcus could access my accounts if he wanted to, and the laptop searches. Those happened on my work computer, which sat on the shared office network. Marcus had administrator access to that network. He could remote into any company device. The pieces started fitting together in a way that made my skin crawl. I went home that night and did something I probably should have done weeks earlier. I logged into my home security system and started reviewing old footage. I'd installed cameras after a string of break-ins in my neighborhood the previous year. Front door, back door, living room. The footage backed up automatically to cloud storage. I started going through it methodically. 1 month back. 2 months, 3. At month 8, I found something. The timestamp showed March 7th at 2:15 p.m. I remembered that day. I was in Hawaii for my college roommate's wedding. Marcus had my spare key because he'd offered to water my plants while I was gone. The footage showed him letting himself into my apartment. He went straight to my home office, sat down at my personal laptop. For 3 hours. I pulled up my email records from that date. 17 suspicious emails sent between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m., all from my account. All discussing offshore structures and transfer protocols, all building a trail of evidence that would point directly to me. My hands were shaking as I downloaded the footage to 3 separate hard drives. One I put in my safe deposit box, one I gave to James, one I kept. This was proof that Marcus had accessed my systems, that he'd been in my apartment when those incriminating emails were sent. But I couldn't tell anyone, not yet. If I confronted Marcus now, he'd lawyer up. He'd destroy evidence. He'd gotten this far ahead of me by exploiting my trust. If I wanted to stop him, I needed to be smarter, more patient. I needed to pretend I was the defeated partner everyone thought I was while I quietly built a case that would bury him. The next morning, I called James. I found something, but I need your advice before I do anything with it. We met at a coffee shop in Cambridge, far from anyone who might recognize us. I showed him the security footage on my laptop. "This is good," James said, watching Marcus enter my apartment on the screen. "But it's not enough by itself. We can prove he accessed your laptop, but we can't prove what he did on it. His lawyer will say you asked him to grab a file for you. That it was innocent. So what do I need? Everything. Bank records showing where the embezzled money actually went. Communications between him and whoever helped him set up the offshore accounts. Evidence of motive why he needed the money. And we need to build this case without him knowing we're building it. How do I do that?" James smiled grimly. "You become someone he doesn't see as a threat, someone who's given up. So that's exactly what I did." I showed up to the next board meeting looking exhausted, defeated. I apologized for the trouble I'd caused, said I understood they needed to protect the company, agreed to continue my leave of absence without argument. Marcus pulled me aside afterward. "I know this is hard, man. But it's the right thing. Let Patricia finish her investigation. Let the process work." "Yeah," I said, letting my shoulders slump. "I just want this to be over." He squeezed my shoulder, the gesture of a concerned friend. "It will be, I promise, just hang in there." That afternoon, I hired 2 people. The first was Natalie Chen, a forensic IT specialist who'd worked major fraud cases for the Justice Department before going private. Her rate was $800 an hour. "I recovered deleted data from destroyed hard drives," she said during our first meeting. "If your partner covered his tracks digitally, I'll find where he stepped." The second was a private investigator named Tom Bradford, former FBI, 20 years tracking financial crimes, now running his own firm. "I need to know everything about Marcus Chen," I told him. "Where he goes, who he meets, what he spends money on. I need his entire life mapped out." "Legal boundaries?" Tom asked. "Stay completely legal, but be thorough." Over the next 8 months, I played my role perfectly. I stopped asking questions, stopped showing up at the office. Let Marcus run CloudSafe while I quietly dismantled his life from the shadows. Natalie's work was surgical. She accessed CloudSafe's servers legally through my founder credentials that hadn't been revoked. She recovered deleted files, thousands of them, including Marcus's real accounting ledger. He'd been skimming for nearly 2 years. Small amounts at first, 5,000 here, 10,000 there. Amounts small enough that they'd disappear into legitimate business expenses, then larger. He'd created shell companies with names similar to real vendors we used, invoiced CloudSafe for services never rendered, funneled the money offshore. But he'd kept a private ledger tracking everything. His insurance policy, probably, in case he needed to prove where the money went later. Then he deleted it when the IRS audit got scheduled. He just hadn't understood that deletion doesn't mean gone, not to someone like Natalie. She pulled IP address logs that proved Marcus had logged into my email account 19 times over 8 months. Every single login corresponded with a suspicious email being sent from my account. The digital fingerprints were unmistakable. Tom's investigation was even more revealing. He found Marcus's second phone, a burner he used for communications he didn't want traced. Tom couldn't access the encrypted messages, but he could track where the phone went, including 3 trips to the Cayman Islands over 18 months, the same months when the offshore accounts were opened and funded. Tom photographed Marcus meeting with a man named Robert Keller, who ran a boutique wealth management firm specializing in international asset protection. He photographed Marcus at casinos in Atlantic City and Las Vegas, not once or twice, dozens of times. Tom pulled every legal financial record he could access. Credit reports, court records, property deeds. The picture that emerged was devastating. Marcus owed money. A lot of money. $340,000 to an underground casino operation run out of Quincy. Tom found the loan documents, the payment demands, the threats that escalated from polite to violent over 18 months. Everything clicked into place. Marcus needed money fast. He'd started stealing from CloudSafe to cover gambling debts. Then he'd stolen more to maintain the lifestyle he couldn't afford. The Tesla, the condo, the expensive watches that cost more than most people's monthly rent. When the IRS audit got scheduled, he'd panicked and framed me to buy himself time to cover his tracks. But Marcus had made one critical mistake. He'd underestimated me. By month 7 of my leave of absence, I had everything. Bank records showing wire transfers that originated from Marcus's personal devices, not mine. Communications between him and the offshore account manager. Documentation of the gambling debts. security footage of him accessing my apartment and laptop. The deleted ledger recovered from company servers. Most damning of all, Natalie found a property deed. Marcus had bought a vacation home in Vermont under an LLC. He'd used $200,000 in stolen CloudSafe funds for the purchase. The LLC traced back to a shell company in Delaware, which traced back to one of the Cayman accounts, which traced directly back to Marcus. I met with James in his office on a gray afternoon in December, spread everything across his conference table. 8 months of investigation, hundreds of documents, thousands of pages of evidence. James reviewed it all methodically. Then he sat back and removed his glasses. "This is the most thorough fraud case I've seen in 20 years of practice," he said. "We don't just have enough to clear you, we have enough to destroy him, completely." Good. James spent the next week drafting an evidence package. 847 pages. Every transaction documented. Every forged email traced to its real origin. Every lie Marcus had told, systematically disproven with electronic evidence. We filed it with the federal prosecutor's office and the SEC simultaneously. The SEC investigation launched 3 days later. Marcus got the call while he was in a board meeting. I wasn't there, but Jessica called me right after. "SEC agents showed up at the office," she said. "Served Marcus with a subpoena." Jason, his face went completely white. He looked at me and said, "There's been a misunderstanding. I can explain everything." But the agents just took his laptop and left. What did the board do? We held an emergency vote, suspended him immediately pending the investigation's outcome. He kept insisting it was all a mistake, that you must have planted evidence somehow. She paused. "But Jason, we've seen the preliminary SEC findings. The evidence against him is overwhelming." Marcus called me that night. I let it ring 4 times before answering. "Jason." His voice was tight, scared. "We need to talk. There's been a massive misunderstanding. The SEC doesn't understand how our accounting works. We can fix this before it gets out of control." "Can we?" "Yes. Look, I know things have been tense between us, but we're partners. We built this company together. We can work this out privately. Settle everything before this becomes a legal nightmare that destroys CloudSafe." "Marcus, did you steal $2.3 million from our company?" Silence, long enough that I thought he might have hung up. "It's not that simple," he finally said. "I borrowed money. I was going to pay it back. I had some financial problems, some debts, but I was handling them. Then the audit happened and I panicked. I made some bad decisions, but I never meant to hurt you. You framed me for your crimes. I was protecting the company. If the board knew I'd taken money, they would have fired us both. The company would have collapsed. I did what I had to do to keep CloudSafe alive." The rationalization was breathtaking. He'd actually convinced himself that framing me for embezzlement was noble. "I'll see you in court," I said and hung up. The federal hearing was scheduled for February 14th, Valentine's Day. The universe has a dark sense of humor. The courthouse was downtown Boston, one of those old federal buildings with marble columns and American flags hanging from 30-foot ceilings. I arrived with James at 8:45. Marcus arrived 10 minutes later with his attorney, a man named Richard Vance who specialized in white-collar defense and cost at least $1,500 an hour. The hearing room was smaller than I expected. Judge Patricia Morrison presiding, gray hair pulled back, reading glasses on a chain, the kind of judge who'd seen every variation of human dishonesty and wasn't impressed by any of it. The prosecution was handled by Assistant U.S. Attorney David Park. He was younger than I expected, maybe 35, with wire-rimmed glasses and a reputation for being thorough to the point of obsession. He stood and began laying out the government's case. "Your Honor, the evidence will show that Marcus Chen systematically embezzled $2.3 million from CloudSafe Technologies over an 18-month period. He created false documentation, forged his business partner's digital signature, and planted incriminating evidence on Mr. Webb's personal devices to avoid detection. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. It was a calculated, premeditated scheme to defraud both his company and his closest friend." Richard Vance stood. "Your Honor, my client maintains his innocence. The government's case relies entirely on circumstantial evidence and speculation. Mr. Chen and Mr. Webb were equal partners with equal access to all company systems. The prosecution has simply chosen to believe Mr. Webb's version of events." Judge Morrison looked at David Park. I've reviewed your preliminary evidence package, Mr. Park. It's quite extensive. Proceed. David pulled up the first exhibit on the courtroom monitor. Email metadata. These emails were allegedly sent from Mr. Webb's account between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. on March 7th of last year. However, IP address logs show they originated from Marcus Chen's home network, not Mr. Webb's apartment. Mr. Webb was in Hawaii at the time, as confirmed by airline records and hotel receipts. He pulled up the next exhibit, my security footage. This is footage from Mr. Webb's home security system, also dated March 7th. You can see Mr. Chen entering the apartment at 2:15 p.m. using his spare key. He proceeds directly to Mr. Webb's home office and accesses his personal laptop. The timestamp corresponds exactly with when the fraudulent emails were sent. Several people in the gallery gasped. Marcus's face had gone pale. David continued, methodical and devastating. Banking records show that the wire transfers in question were authorized using device signatures matching Mr. Chen's personal phone and laptop, not Mr. Webb's devices. Furthermore, Mr. Chen made 3 trips to the Cayman Islands during the relevant time period. He pulled up photos Tom had taken. Marcus shaking hands with Robert Keller outside a Georgetown office building. Marcus at the roulette table in Atlantic City. Marcus signing paperwork at a Vermont real estate closing. Mr. Chen also purchased a vacation property in Vermont for $400,000. The down payment of $200,000 came directly from funds traced to the embezzled money. The property was purchased through an LLC that connects directly to the offshore accounts. Richard Vance tried to object. Your Honor, this is speculation. The prosecution is connecting unrelated. The connections are thoroughly documented, Judge Morrison interrupted, flipping through the evidence package in front of her. Continue, Mr. Park. David pulled up the recovered ledger. This is a document recovered from CloudSafe servers. It was deleted by Mr. Chen on September 15th, 2 days after the IRS audit was announced. However, deletion doesn't permanently remove data. Forensic analysis recovered this file, which shows a complete accounting of the embezzled funds. Every transaction, every transfer, all in Mr. Chen's handwriting and created from his computer. The courtroom was silent except for the hum of the ventilation system. Finally, David said, we have documentation of Mr. Chen's gambling debts. He owed $340,000 to an illegal gambling operation. Payment demands escalated over 18 months, corresponding directly with the timing of the embezzlement. This establishes clear motive. Richard Vance stood. Your Honor, may I confer with my client? Judge Morrison nodded. Marcus and his attorney whispered frantically for 3 minutes. Richard's face grew more tense with each passing second. Finally, Richard stood again. Your Honor, my client would like to make a statement. Marcus stood. His hands were shaking. I never meant for things to go this far. I had gambling debts, bad debts to dangerous people. I thought I could borrow money from the company temporarily, pay it back before anyone noticed. But the debts kept growing. I kept trying to win it back and I just kept losing. His voice cracked. Then the IRS audit got scheduled and I panicked. I knew they'd find everything, so I tried to make it look like Jason was responsible. I planted evidence, forged his signature, made it seem like he was the one stealing. I thought if I could buy time, I could fix everything, pay back the money, make it right. He looked directly at me. I know what I did was wrong. I hurt someone who trusted me, who believed in me. Jason, you were my best friend, and I betrayed you in the worst possible way. I'm sorry. I know sorry doesn't mean anything now, but I am. I was desperate and scared, and I made terrible choices. The courtroom was completely silent. Judge Morrison removed her glasses. Mr. Chen, you didn't make mistakes. You committed crimes, multiple serious crimes. You stole over $2 million from a company you helped build. You framed an innocent man and nearly destroyed his life to save yourself. That's not desperation. That's calculated criminal behavior. She looked at David Park. Proceed with formal charges. Wire fraud, embezzlement, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit fraud. I'm ordering Mr. Chen remanded to custody pending trial. Your Honor, Richard Vance stood quickly, my client is not a flight risk. He has strong ties to the community. We respectfully request he remain free on bail. Denied. Your client has demonstrated a pattern of sophisticated fraud and deception. He has the means and the international connections to flee. Officers, please take Mr. Chen into custody. Two federal marshals approached. Marcus looked at me as they put the handcuffs on. His eyes were wet, desperate. "Jason, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, we were friends, brothers. I never wanted to hurt you." I said nothing. Just watched them lead him away. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Marcus's attorney tried everything. Argued that we'd both had equal access to company accounts. Suggested I might have planted evidence to frame Marcus as revenge for some unspecified slight. Even tried to claim the gambling debts were exaggerated by the prosecution. The jury didn't buy any of it. They deliberated for 7 hours. When they returned, the forewoman read the verdict on all counts. Guilty. Marcus closed his eyes. His wife, sitting behind him in the gallery, started crying silently. Judge Morrison scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. When that day came, she didn't hold back. "Mr. Chen, you betrayed someone who trusted you completely. You stole from a company you helped build. You nearly destroyed an innocent man's reputation and freedom to protect yourself from the consequences of your own actions. That level of premeditated betrayal requires significant punishment." She sentenced him to 12 years in federal prison. No parole eligibility for 8 years. Full restitution of all embezzled funds plus penalties and interest. Permanent ban from serving as an officer or director of any publicly traded company. Marcus's wife filed for divorce before he even reached prison. She took their 2 kids and moved to Seattle. I heard she got the condo and what was left of his assets after the government seizures. CloudSafe recovered. The board formally apologized to me, offered me expanded equity and full control as CEO. We brought in a new CFO with serious credentials and implemented financial controls that would prevent what Marcus did from ever happening again. The embezzled money was recovered and returned to company accounts. Our investors actually became more confident in us. One venture capitalist from Sand Hill Road called me personally. "We've been watching how you handled this situation. The patience, the strategy, that's the kind of leadership we want to back." But I couldn't stay. CloudSafe was successful, but every time I walked into that office, I thought about Marcus, about the partnership we'd built and how he destroyed it. 6 months after the sentencing, I stepped down as CEO and promoted my CTO to take over. She was brilliant and ethical, exactly what CloudSafe needed. I started something new, a smaller company focused on fraud detection software, using AI to identify patterns of embezzlement before they spiral out of control. We called it Sentinel. It was personal. 2 years after the trial, I visited Marcus in prison, the federal facility in Petersburg, Virginia, medium security. He'd lost weight, his hair had gone gray at the temples, prison work had left his hands calloused. We sat across from each other in the visiting room, plastic chairs, vending machine coffee, the smell of industrial cleaner. "Why are you here?" he asked. His voice was hollow. "I wanted to understand why you did it. To gloat, to close the door." Marcus stared at his hands. "I was drowning. The gambling started as a stress release, a weekend in Vegas after a hard quarter, but it spiraled. Every time I lost, I was sure I could win it back if I just played one more hand. Then I owed $300,000 to people who don't accept payment plans. So you stole from our company." "I borrowed from our company." That's what I told myself, just temporary. I'd pay it back once I fixed my situation. But then the audit got scheduled and I knew they'd find everything. He looked up. I panicked. "I thought if I made it look like you did it, I'd have time to cover my tracks, return the money, make it seem like a mistake. You were going to let me go to prison for your crimes." "No. I was going to discover evidence clearing you after things calmed down, make it look like a misunderstanding." His voice cracked. "I never thought you'd actually be charged. I thought I could control it." "You controlled nothing. You destroyed everything." "I know." Tears ran down his face. "I destroyed the best friendship I ever had, lost my family, my freedom, everything, and for what? To chase losses at a blackjack table. I stood to leave. You didn't just betray me, Marcus, you became the villain of your own story. That's what I can't forgive." Walking out of that prison felt like closing a book I'd been carrying for too long. Sentinel is doing well now. We've detected and prevented over $40 million in fraud across our client companies. We're growing faster than CloudSafe ever did. I brought in partners, real partners. We have strict financial controls, complete transparency, regular independent audits. Trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets. I protect both now. Sometimes late at night when I'm coding and the office is empty, I think about Marcus. About the kid who stayed up with me during finals, who believed we could build something that mattered. I mourn that person. The one who existed before the gambling and the desperation and the choices that destroyed him. But I don't regret what I did, the 8 months of investigation. The patience, the strategy, he made his choices, I made mine, and mine left me free. Drop a like if this story hit different. Thanks for watching.